History is filled with tales of empires clashing, but few conflicts were as swift, as brutal, and as world-altering as the Mongol invasion of the Khwarezmian Empire. This wasn't just a war, it was an annihilation, a storm from the east that redrew the map of Central Asia, and it all started with a single, fateful decision. Imagine you're Genghis Khan. By 1218, you've united the Mongol tribes and are building one of the most powerful empires the world has ever seen. To your west lies the Khwarezmian Empire, a vast and wealthy sultanate stretching across modern-day Iran, Afghanistan, and Central Asia. Its ruler, Shah Muhammad II, commands a massive army and controls the lucrative Silk Road trade routes. You don't want war, not yet. You want trade. So, you send a diplomatic caravan, a massive procession of 450 merchants, loaded with gifts and a message of peace and commerce. You see the Shah as an equal, addressing him as the ruler of the lands of the setting sun, while you are the ruler of the lands of the rising sun. You envision a future of shared prosperity, with goods and ideas flowing freely between your two great empires. But this vision of peace was about to be shattered. The caravan arrived at the Khwarezmian frontier city of Otrar. The governor, a man named Inohuk, was suspicious. Perhaps he was greedy, eyeing the caravan's rich goods. Perhaps he was paranoid, believing the merchants were spies. Whatever his reason, he made a catastrophic choice. He arrested the entire caravan and, after getting permission from the Shah, executed all 450 merchants and seized their goods. When news reached Genghis Khan, he showed remarkable restraint. He sent a second envoy, this time with a Muslim and 2 Mongol diplomats, to demand that the governor of Otrar be handed over for punishment. It was a final chance for diplomacy, a last off-ramp before the road to war. How did Shah Muhammad respond? He doubled down. He had the Muslim ambassador executed and, in a final act of defiance, shaved off the beards of the 2 Mongol diplomats and sent them back to their Khan. In Mongol culture, a man's beard was a symbol of his honor. To shave, it was the ultimate insult. For Genghis Khan, this was more than an insult. It was a declaration of war. The die was cast. The Shah had not just killed his merchants and envoys, he had insulted the entire Mongol nation, and Genghis Khan would make him, and his entire empire, pay. The coming storm was unlike anything the Khwarezmian Empire could have imagined. Genghis Khan was a master of strategy, intelligence, and psychological warfare. He gathered his forces, not just his warriors, but also engineers, siege experts, and doctors from his conquered territories, particularly from China. He prepared meticulously. Meanwhile, Shah Muhammad II was overconfident. His empire's population was many times that of the Mongols, and his army, on paper, was enormous, perhaps as large as 400,000 men. But it was a fragmented force, plagued by internal rivalries and distrust between the Shah and his commanders. The Shah made a critical strategic error. Instead of meeting the Mongols in a single decisive battle, he distributed his troops among his major cities, hoping to wear the invaders down in a series of long sieges. He fundamentally misunderstood his enemy. The Mongols weren't just raiders, they were masters of siege warfare. In 1219, the invasion began. Genghis Khan divided his army, which numbered around 100,000 to 150,000 men, into several columns to strike multiple points at once, a classic Mongol tactic designed to overwhelm and confuse the enemy. One force, led by his son Joki, swept down from the north. Another, under Chagatai and Ogedei, marched directly towards the city that had started it all, Otra. Genghis Khan himself took the main force on a daring and legendary maneuver. He led his army through the supposedly impassable Kizilkum Desert, a march of hundreds of miles, to appear suddenly and unexpectedly deep within Khwarezmian territory, bypassing their main defensive lines. It was a strategic masterpiece that left the Shah completely bewildered. The siege of Otrar was brutal. For 5 long months, the governor Inohuk, the man who had executed the merchants, held out, but the city's fate was sealed. When Otrar finally fell, the Mongols showed the world the price of defiance. The city was sacked, and its population was massacred. As for Inohuk, his end was particularly gruesome. Legend says that Genghis Khan ordered molten silver to be poured into his eyes and ears, a symbolic punishment for his greed and for what he had seen and heard. While Otrar was being besieged, Genghis Khan's main army emerged from the desert and fell upon the great city of Bukhara. The city's garrison, seeing the size of the Mongol force, tried to flee but was hunted down and destroyed. The city's leaders surrendered, hoping for mercy. Genghis Khan entered the city and rode his horse into the main mosque. He gathered the city's wealthy elite and gave an infamous speech, declaring himself the flail of God, sent to punish them for their sins. He then ordered the city to be looted, but spared most of the population, taking the artisans and young men for his army. The city itself, however, built mostly of wood, caught fire and burned to the ground. Next was the crown jewel of the empire, the magnificent city of Samarkand. It was one of the world's great cities, a center of learning and culture. It was heavily fortified and defended by a huge garrison, perhaps over 100,000 men, including war elephants. The Shah's strategy of garrisoning cities seemed, for a moment, like it might work here, but Mongol deception proved decisive. A portion of the Mongol army pretended to retreat, luring a large part of the garrison out from behind the city walls. Once in the open, the Khwarezmian force was ambushed and annihilated. With their main fighting force gone, the morale inside Samarkand collapsed. After only a few days of siege, the city leaders surrendered. Again, the artisans were spared and conscripted. The rest of the population was ordered to evacuate the city, and as they did, they were systematically slaughtered. It's estimated that hundreds of thousands were killed. The once vibrant Samarkand became a ghost town. As his cities fell one by one, Shah Muhammad II became a fugitive in his own empire. He fled westward, pursued relentlessly by a Mongol detachment of 20,000 horsemen, led by two of Genghis Khan's greatest generals, Gib and Sep. This chase became an epic campaign in itself, a great raid that would take them thousands of miles through Persia, into the Caucasus, and onto the plains of Russia. The Shah, his spirit broken, never stopped running. He eventually found refuge on a small, isolated island in the Caspian Sea, where he died of pleurisy, a lonely and destitute man, a king with no kingdom. But the war was not over. The Shah's son, Jalal ad-Din Mingburnu, was a different man from his father. He was a brave and capable warrior who refused to give up. He rallied the remaining Khwarezmian forces in what is now Afghanistan and managed to inflict one of the few defeats that Mongols suffered during the entire campaign at the Battle of Parwan. It was a brief victory, a glimmer of hope. Enraged, Genghis Khan marched in person to deal with Jalal ad-Din. He cornered him at the banks of the Indus River, in a desperate final stand. Jalal ad-Din and his remaining men fought with incredible courage, but they were hopelessly outnumbered. Seeing that all was lost, Jalal ad-Din famously spurred his horse and leaped from a cliff into the raging river below, escaping to India. Genghis Khan, watching from the clifftop, was said to have been so impressed by his enemy's bravery that he forbade his archers from shooting him, telling his sons, "Such a son must a father have." With Jalal ad-Din's escape, the organized resistance of the Khwarezmian Empire was effectively over. But the Mongol wrath was not. They turned their attention to the remaining cities, like Urgench, the old capital. Its siege was one of the longest and bloodiest of the war. The defenders fought block by block, house by house. When the city finally fell, the destruction was absolute. The Mongols broke the dams on the Amu Darya River, flooding the ruins and wiping Urgench from the face of the earth. By 1221, the war was over. In just 2 years, the mighty Khwarezmian Empire, one of the most powerful Islamic states of its time, had been utterly and completely destroyed. The cost in human life was staggering. Historians estimate that millions died, not just from the fighting, but from the famines and diseases that followed. Great cities that had been centers of civilization for centuries were reduced to rubble. Libraries were burned, irrigation systems destroyed, and a region that had been a cradle of science and art was plunged into a dark age from which it would take centuries to recover. The Mongol invasion of Khwarezm was more than just a conquest. It was a turning point in history. It cemented Genghis Khan's reputation for terror and military genius. It opened the way for the Mongol invasions of Russia and Europe. And it all began with a caravan, a greedy governor, and an insulted Khan. It's a terrifying reminder of how the foolish actions of a few can bring about the ruin of millions. Thank you so much for watching. If you found this journey into the past interesting, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel for more deep dives into history's most dramatic events. Let me know in the comments what you think about this incredible story. See you next time.